Some things in this world are so rotten, so twisted, they make a good man wonder why God ever let certain folks be born. In the summer of 1893, just outside Ghost Ranch, New Mexico, the sky hung low and the heat sat heavy on the land. Dust clung to the skin. Even the lizards kept to the shade. Nothing moved, nothing dared. Except one man, Thomas Graves. He wasn't looking for trouble. He was heading home after trading salt blocks and bullets in town. A quiet man, the kind who spoke little but remembered everything. As he turned down a canyon trail, he spotted something odd beneath a juniper tree. From a distance, it looked like a bundle of cloth. Then he saw skin, pale, bruised, exposed. It stopped him cold. It was a girl. Maybe 20. Maybe younger. Wrapped in a filthy blanket barely hanging to her frame. Her legs were scratched raw, her lips cracked from sun and thirst. Her hair stuck to her face in bloody clumps. Her eyes, though open, were empty. She didn't scream, didn't flinch, didn't ask for help. She just said, in a voice like dry wind through gravel, "I'm filthy, inside and out." He didn't need her to explain. Her bruises, the torn blanket, the empty eyes, her body told stories no words ever could. That line hung in the air like smoke. Thomas didn't move for a while. He had seen war, seen death, seen what men do when no one's watching, but he had never seen a soul so broken it no longer feared anything. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask who did it. He just stepped forward, laid down his coat without a word, and scooped her up like she weighed nothing. Not out of heroism, not out of mercy, but because that was the only damn thing to do. She didn't resist, just rested her head on his chest, like she'd been waiting for someone to give her permission to stop running. And in that moment, under that tree, with the sun baking the land and the world too cruel to care, a man who lost everything met someone who had even less. He didn't know her name, didn't know her story, but he knew this much. Whatever hell she came from, she wasn't going back alone. What happened next would change them both forever. The trail back to the ranch was long, rough, and dead quiet. Thomas didn't say a word, and neither did the girl. She just leaned against him on the saddle, eyes closed, body trembling now and then like her nerves hadn't figured out she was safe yet. The ranch sat tucked behind a ridge of scrubby hills, quiet and far from town, just the way Thomas liked it. No neighbors, no questions, just creaking wood, dusty windows, and the faint sound of wind slipping through broken fences. He laid her on the old cot in the corner of the cabin, brought in warm water, set a clean dress from his late wife on the table. Then, without a word, he stepped outside and sat on the porch, letting her be. He lit a cigarette, watched the sky turn from gold to rust. He didn't know what she'd do. Run, cry, maybe break something. But she didn't run. Next morning, he found her in the barn, sitting quiet, wrapping her arms around a sack of feed like it was the last soft thing in the world. She said nothing. He offered her a tin of beans and a piece of cornbread. She ate slowly, like someone who had learned not to trust food showing up too easy. Later, she asked for a comb. It was the first real thing she said. He handed her one, watched as she worked through the knots in silence. Then, just once, she asked, "Why didn't you touch me?" He stared at her for a long moment before answering, because no one should have. She didn't cry, but her lip quivered just enough to betray the storm she'd been holding back. That night, she didn't sleep in the barn. She stayed inside, curled under a blanket near the fire. Thomas didn't press, just sat outside again, listening to coyotes howl in the distance, and in the quiet of that second night, something shifted. She wasn't safe yet, but for the first time, she wasn't alone. What neither of them knew was that someone else had already learned she was still alive. It was 3 days before either of them said more than a handful of words. Thomas worked the fences, chopped wood, brought water in from the well. She stayed close, but never underfoot. He noticed she'd started brushing her hair regular. He didn't comment that she didn't need praise, just peace. But peace never lasts long out here. On the 4th morning, he saddled up and said he was riding into Abiquiu, just a quick trip, medicine, coffee, nails. She didn't say a thing, but when he turned around, she was already pulling on the same worn boots she'd found by the door. He let her ride. The town wasn't big, but it had eyes and mouths and trouble. They kept to themselves, moved quiet through the general store. She stayed behind him, eyes down, but just as they stepped out onto the porch, a voice cut through the dust. "Well, I'll be damned. Look what the cat dragged back." Thomas turned. The man was tall, red-faced, reeking of liquor even at noon. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly, and she froze. The man stepped closer. "She didn't tell you, huh? We had ourselves a deal." Pretty little thing ran off before payday. Thomas didn't ask for proof. Didn't ask what kind of deal. He stepped forward and hit the man so hard. His boots left the porch. Folks turned. Nobody helped. The man lay in the dirt, bleeding from his mouth, and still grinned. "You just made enemies, old man. You got no idea who's backing me. You think you're a hero." "Old man, my brother runs this damn county. You'll both be ghosts before the week's out." Thomas didn't answer, just looked down and said real low, "I don't care who's backing you. She ain't yours." They left town right then. But the words followed them like a curse. That night, Etta sat by the fire, hands shaking. Thomas didn't try to comfort her. He just poured her a drink, then one for himself. "It's coming, isn't it?" she asked. He nodded once. "Yeah, it's coming." This part of the story's just warming up. If you made it this far, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We got more of this truth and blood storytelling coming your way. They didn't wait. That same night after Abiquiu, Thomas packed a saddlebag with jerky ammo, a flask of clean water, and 2 bedrolls. Etta didn't ask where they were going. She just helped load the horses. He burned nothing, left the cabin just as it was. No goodbyes, no looking back. The mountains to the north were unforgiving. Steep trails, wild animals, cold nights. But it was better than staying and waiting to be hunted. 3 days in, the signs came. Tracks. Fresh ones. Too clean to be passing traders. Too straight to be lost ranchers. Thomas knew the land better than anyone. He also knew when he was being followed. 2 of them. Maybe 3. Not enough to start a war, but enough to finish one. So he did what any man with dirt under his nails and fight in his blood would do. He set traps, moved silent through ravines and dry creek beds, slept light, woke often, watched for smoke that wasn't theirs. Etta followed his lead, said little, watched his every move. Her fear was quiet now. Focused. Steady. On the 4th night, they caught the first one. Snare line to the ankle, broke his leg clean. The scream echoed through the pines. Thomas dragged him off the trail. No shouting, no threat. Just one question. Who sent you? The man only laughed. Spit blood. You'll see. You think this is personal. She saw things. Things that weren't meant to leave that house. Next night, gunshots cracked through the canyon. No one hit, but it told them clear. The other one was close. Too close. Thomas knew they had to end it. Now. Before daybreak. What came next wasn't just survival. It was war in shadows. Rock to rock. Breath to breath. And when it was done, there was only one man standing. Blood on his sleeve. Smoke in his lungs. And Etta, still there, still alive, staring at him like she didn't know whether to cry or speak. "You kill for me." He wiped his mouth, nodded once. "I live for you first." But that wasn't the end. Not yet. There's one more thing Etta never told Thomas, and when it comes out, it will change everything. Weeks passed since the last shot echoed through the canyon, up on Taos Plateau, where the wind felt cleaner and the sky stretched farther. Thomas built a small cabin from logs and old boards he found near a dry creek. No paint, no porch, but it stood. Etta helped. She dug the post holes, cooked simple stews, and on most nights sat beside the fire in silence. Not the kind that hides things, the kind that says peace has finally found a place to rest. One evening, as the sun sank behind the ridgeline, she looked over at Thomas and said, "That girl under that tree, she's gone." He didn't answer right away. Just stared into the fire, then turned and said, "Then I'm proud to have buried her." and to have met the woman sitting here now. There were no grand declarations, no kisses in the rain, just a nod, a small smile, two people who had been broken in different ways, now standing in the same light. They never went back to town, never tried to explain. Sometimes the world doesn't need your story. It just needs you to survive it. And maybe that is the story, because for every man who's turned his back on what's right, there's another who still knows when to act. And for every woman who's been left with nothing but bruises and fear, there's still a chance, a sliver of sky, a path that leads somewhere new. So if you've made it this far, ask yourself, what would you have done if it were you who found her? Would you have turned away, or would you have stepped forward, even if no one saw it but God? If this story stirred something in you, give it a like. And if you want more stories that remind you who we're supposed to be, hit that subscribe button, because out here in the wild, good men still ride, and some stories like this one deserve to be remembered.